We usually think of fruits and vegetables as healthy food, but just how healthy are they? Americans for Safe Food, an environmental group, says not very. The group says so much of our produce is contaminated with chemical additives and pesticides, and the government is not keeping up with it. The group is asking supermarkets to sell only additive and pesticide-free foods in an effort to push the government into action. Now, with a look at just what the federal government is up against in fighting pesticides, here's Bill Redeker's report.
Americans are consumed with eating healthy food. It's not just Mother who says vegetables and fruit are good for you. But the new report says the government doesn't know whether a lot of this food is contaminated by dangerous pesticide residue.
The federal government spends $13 million a year, that's 13 million, to monitor the entire food supply of the United States. 250 billion pounds of food. It's a drop in the bucket. It's an illusion of safety.
During the past 3 decades, farmers across this country have increased their use of pesticides tenfold. Today, more than 733 million pounds of chemicals are sprayed on everything from grapes to grapefruit. It is the Food and Drug Administration's responsibility to monitor the use of these pesticides and crack down on growers who abuse them. But according to an investigation by the government's General Accounting Office, the FDA is doing little of either, failing to test a lot of our food for dangerous pesticides and failing to keep contaminated food from reaching the table. The study says the FDA sampled less than 1% of the food supply. And even though 3% of that was contaminated, in most cases the agency did not prevent it from going to market.
That means in a given month, at least once, I'm going to eat food that's contaminated with pesticide. I don't consider that good protection.
So far, the FDA has refused to comment on whether it's doing its job, leaving only those who produce the chemicals to answer.
I think the quantity of the food supply that contains illegal residues is quite small. I think that the quantities of those that are there are not something that we should be overly alarmed about.
The FDA does not have the resources to do the job, and so your chances of contracting a disease, or at least a serious illness, are fairly high.
Durenberger says he will introduce legislation to empower the FDA to inspect more food and penalize growers who allow illegal pesticide residues into the food chain. Meanwhile, consumers have no way of knowing whether healthy food is always good for them. Bill Redeker, CBS News, New York.